In this PowerPoint, we are going to cover how to create APA citations, and this is going to be really important for your annotated bibliography assignment that you are going to complete as a group. So first, we need to talk about why we need to cite sources. There are several reasons why. The first is to inform readers where information can be found. This is in case they want to read more about the subject matter that you're writing on. Another reason is to give credit to the originator of the words and or ideas. So basically you need to give credit where it's due. The exception to this is common knowledge. Common knowledge is something that is common to the general public, not just to you. So for example, if I tell you the sky is blue, that would be common knowledge and I don't need to cite it. If, however, you are talking about information about your company, you will need to actually cite, let's say, for example, the year it was founded, because that would not be common knowledge to the general public, even though it may be general knowledge for you and the people that you work with. APA, or the American Psychological Association, is the style that we use in business writing. And what that means is we use an author date system with the author's last name followed by the date of publication in parentheses. The material cited is followed by a page number in parentheses, and at the end of the paper, an alphabetized list of references gives complete publication information for the source. Here we see examples of both in-text citations and a reference entry. The reference entry is what goes on your reference page at the end of the paper. For the in-text citation, in this example, we are using what is called a signaling phrase. That is where we say the author's name in the sentence, followed by the date in parentheses. We state the quoted material, followed by the page number in parentheses. For the reference entry, it's the last name, followed by the first and middle initials of the authors, followed by the date, and for this example we have a journal, so the journal information follows. APA style requires the use of past tense or the present perfect tense in signal phrases that is introducing the cited material. So for example, here you see Smith in parentheses 2005 reported is past tense, and the second example where it says has argued is the present perfect tense. Now the reason APA has you do this with cited material is because the material was already written, so it occurred in the past. This is another example of what we talked about previously, where the signal phrase is an introduction that includes the last name followed by the year of publication in parentheses. The page number is included in the parentheses after the quote. So here's another example where it says Jagger in parentheses 2010. Noted that this is the way to include APA style in-text citations for quotations, followed by the page number in parentheses. When you are citing works with multiple authors, when you have two authors, you give the names of both authors in the signal phrase or parentheses each time you cite the work. If you're doing it in parentheses at the end, as this example shows, you use the and symbol. If you're doing it with the signal phrase that we saw before, you would write out the word and. When you are citing works with multiple authors, 3 to 5 of them, you identify all authors the first time you cite the source. So here you see this example where every author's listed out, and please notice we use the word and because we listed the authors in sentence form. But in subsequent citations, you use the first author's name followed by et al. If you have an organization as the author, you name the organization in the signal phrase or in the parenthetical citation the first time you use the source. The name of the organization in this case goes where you would have placed an author had there been one. So as you see here, in the parentheses you have the name of the organization, comma, date, comma, page number. If the organization has a familiar abbreviation, such as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is known as the CDC, you may include it in brackets the first time you cite the source and use it alone in later citations. So as you see here with the first citation, you have to identify the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and then in brackets you have the CDC, and then comma, year in parentheses. And in later citations you can just use CDC, comma, date. When we have personal communication such as interviews, emails, memos, letters, or other unpublished communication, you can only cite it in text and you do not include it in the reference list. The reason for this is items in the reference list are things, remember, as we said in the beginning, where people can look up and read the information later if they're more interested in learning more about it. With interviews and emails, you are not able to do so. So again, personal communication is cited only in the text and is not included in the reference list. When you are citing personal communication, use the first initial with the last name in parentheses. So as you see here, you have C. Jagger, that comma, personal communication, comma, and then the exact date, including the month, the day, and the year that the communication took place. Electronic sources can be a little bit more tricky because sometimes they are missing information. So if possible, you want to cite it as you normally would, giving the author and the year. But sometimes they lack the author's names, the dates, and the page numbers. If you have an unknown author, you mention the title and the signal phrase or give the first word or two in parentheses. So here, for example, if I was on the Cincinnati Reds website, I would use Cincinnati Reds followed by the year and the paragraph number. If you have an unknown date, you put N period D period in the parentheses. This stands for no date. And if you do not have page numbers, you count the paragraphs or use the headings. So here, instead of a page number, you would have Jagger, comma, 2011, comma, para, period, 5. So I would know if I go to that site, the information is in paragraph 5. Now we're going to change our attention to the list of references. This is at the end of your paper, and it is alphabetical by author's name or title if there is no author. The first line of each entry is flush left, and any additional lines are indented 1/2 of an inch. Authors' names are inverted, and you use the initials instead of first names, and you separate the authors with commas. For titles and subtitles of books, you italicize them, but you do not italicize or use quote marks around the titles of articles. The titles of journals themselves, however, are italicized. Additionally, you only capitalize the first word of the title and subtitle in all proper nouns of books and articles. Additionally, you also capitalize anything following a colon. Here is an example of how to complete a reference entry of a single author item. Now, this would be a book. Again, the citations vary, and you should refer to your writer's reference book, the APA section, if you have questions on how to format a specific type. Here are examples of how to format a journal in a newspaper. Again, your writer's reference book has examples of how to do this as well. And when it comes to online sources, they vary according to type, and your writer's reference manual is also a great resource for this. You use a retrieval date only if content is likely to change. For example, if I go to CNN.com today, the information that is there on their homepage would be different than what would be there tomorrow. Therefore, I would need a retrieval date. There is something in an entry on the databases that is called a DOI, which is a digital object identifier. If you must break a DOI or a URL, you do so after the double slash or before any other mark of punctuation. Do not add a hyphen and do not use a period. This would break the hyperlink. Here I show how the reference entry would look for your writer's reference book. If you turn to page 473 in your reference book, this begins the APA citation section, and it has a really nice table of contents at the beginning. This book covers everything that I just mentioned, and it shows you how to cite the different types. If you have a question about how to cite a certain type, you can definitely reach out to me or any professor that you will have throughout the program. If you look at page 526, it starts an example paper, which is also very helpful in determining the proper APA format for papers. This is what you should follow in this program. As you notice, it has a running head, which followed by the title on the first page. Page numbers are top right. Okay, and then it shows you an example of how to do a reference page on page 534. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great week.